First speaker this evening is Lynn Muller, and if you'd like me to, Mr. Presiding Officer, I'll call the next speaker so
That's
they can
fine.
be ready.
Yep.
The next speaker would be Jenny Agnew.
Hi, my name is Lynn Muller. I live on Woodcliff Road in Ladue and have volunteered at the shelter between 4 and 7. Management is rude and hostile to customers and volunteers and have been for the past year and a half that I've volunteered. I know of volunteers who won't come back because of them. Temporary dog walkers. I don't know why this has taken so long. Volunteers love walking the dogs, but not when it becomes our job. A behaviorist, someone who is knowledgeable and of whom the dogs aren't afraid, needs to assess the animals. It's a matter of life and death. Marketing. A pet adoption center must market their animals. A shelter director. One failed search for the shelter director and one failed search for the population manager. Is this a problem with the candidates or with the search committees? Thank you.
Next speaker is
Good evening. I'm a volunteer at St. Louis County Animal Care and Control. I last stood in front of this group to talk about Cameo, a dog who was euthanized that same day. Her record, which I obtained through a sunshine request, suggests that she did not receive a fair behavioral assessment. Since that time I spoke, I've also started fostering a dog from county, a shy dog, Snoop, who is evaluated to be too shy even to rescue. If a dog can't go to the adoption floor and it can't go to rescue, there's only one pathway for that animal: euthanasia. Snoop has been in my house for about a month now, and based on my past experiences with shy and feral dogs, there's no reason why she couldn't have gone to rescue. There's no reason why she should have been euthanized. Snoop barely made it out. How many other dogs have been mislabeled and become rescue only? How many other dogs become mislabeled and have been euthanized? Given what I found in Cameo's file, I ordered records for several other dogs who have been euthanized, again using sunshine requests. A volunteer favorite, Louise, was another shy dog who illustrates all that needs to change at county. She wasn't vaccinated immediately upon intake. She quickly grew ill with an upper respiratory infection. She waited to be spayed because there was only one vet on staff at the time. She didn't get out as much as she needed to because there never seems to be enough people walking. When she was adopted, there was no landlord check. She was returned 2 days later because the landlord said she was too big. The person who surrendered her was not her owner, but still signed the ORE box. Both the person who surrendered her and the staff and intake noted she was friendly. While she was being moved from intake to her kennel with no time for decompression, Louise supposedly barked and growled at a staff member who wanted to interact with her in the hallway. That same staff member used a clipboard to try to assess her behavior a couple of days later. A clipboard. Louise was euthanized the next day based on one staff member's evaluation of her and because the ORE box was checked. We've been told things would get better after the special hearing in April. We've been told things would get better with the recent publication of the audit results. I'm standing here again telling you that things are getting worse. Behavioral evaluations are capricious, inconsistent, and do not follow contemporary best practices. Most often, they are performed with a person standing outside the kennel, tapping a pen on the
Sorry,
bars,
I have to ask you to split.
and forcing a clipboard at them. When's it going to change?
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Malley, and I'm a volunteer at St. Louis County Animal Care and Control. According to the audit, the adoption process at County ACC needs to be revamped. Currently, because animal caregivers are pulled in so many different directions and there never seem to be enough on staff at one time, there's little to no counseling going on. People come in and often wander around the adoption floor on their own. Volunteers have been instructed to not help with adoptions, so many of us are worried that even talking to a potential adopter will result in a staff member complaining about us. As potential adopters wander the unsupervised adoption floor, they can be often found tapping on the glass, sticking their fingers under the kennels, and otherwise inappropriately interacting with the dogs. Depending on the day, some adopters may wait as long as 20 minutes for the dog they're interested in to be put in the get acquainted room. Depending on the day and the caregiver, adopters may be left alone with the dog, even adopters with small children. Not only is the session unsupervised, an opportunity is lost for a real conversation to occur with potential education for the adopter. We are not blaming caregivers or front desk staff, but rather pointing to the lack of supervision and mentoring and to the larger standard operating procedure that needs to change. Open adoptions like those at ACC can be highly successful and ideal way to help match a large number of animals with adopters. When they are done well, open adoptions, including some screenings, the use of a do not adopt list, for example, and an extended conversation alone in a room together. Neither of those basic things is occurring at county shelter. People adopt dogs without bringing the resident pet in, and the adopted dog comes back a couple days later for not getting a walk. People adopt dogs without checking with their landlords or following weight and breed restrictions, and the adopted dog comes back a couple of days later. People adopt dogs with unrealistic expectations, and the dog comes back a couple of days later. When a dog spends a long time in the shelter and presents with a supposed behavioral problem, the number of dogs that have been returned also plays a role in deciding a euthanasia outcome. That means the dogs are being penalized, actually euthanized, for the lack of adoption screening and counseling. The St. Louis County Pet Adoption Center needs to dedicate adoption counselors who know the animals well. Also recommended by the audit is a separate room for counseling. Consulting a do not adopt list should be mandatory. Any resident dog should be required to come in for a prior meet to the adoption. Checking CaseNet for any animal-related charges would take a little time during the process as well. Adopters should be sent home with a robust packet of educational materials, and the adoption counselor should be following up with the adopters to promote retention. These are basic best practices of adoption that the shelter must implement for the safety of the animals in its care. Thank you.
Beth Wasserstrom, followed by Katie Kaufman.
I actually prepared folders for everyone that highlights what the nonprofits be doing and some of the activities the volunteers have been engaged in, and some of the programs that have been successful and have discontinued over the past year or so. Good evening. My name is Beth Wasserstrom. I'm a resident of District 2 and typically volunteer several times a week at the animal shelter. My children also volunteer there, and since we started, we have seen 5 changes in directorship and witnessed huge turnovers in staff. I've heard over and over that dysfunction is the norm across the county system, and I think I've truly come to respect it. So I want to commend the courts for showing me differently. I reported for jury duty on July 22nd. It was pouring rain, yet the security staff politely and efficiently moved over 200 potential jurors through security. Signage was easy to follow, and the jury room was spotless and well appointed. Every employee I came into contact with was warm, friendly, and gracious, every single one. Bailiffs took care of pronouncing names and making many nervous residents feel welcome. We were provided with clear communication, educational handouts, a video, and an entertaining overview of the expectations. It was driven home that we should be honest and transparent to prevent future problems. Both Judge Reno Clark and Judge May thanked us repeatedly for the sacrifice to serve our community. County was effectively able to bring all these different parties, the lawyers, the plaintiffs, the defendants, and the potential jurors together, and the experience absolutely exceeded my expectations. And this is what we want for the shelter. The volunteers at the shelter are the county's insurance policy, an insurance policy that supplied 1,600 hours of labor in July alone and provided thousands of dollars of benefit to our animals. This past Sunday, volunteers provided 130 walks, allowing animals to relieve themselves outside. From a well-being and infectious disease standpoint, this is crucial. As a matter of fact, one of my first emails to county officials in early 2018 was to ask for help regarding this issue. With so many volunteers and staff leaving, our inability to get all the animals out once a day resulted in stressed dogs in small kennels eating their own feces. Our over 200 active volunteers are lawyers, doctors, psychologists, college professors, magazine editors, teachers, vet techs, microbiologists, professional writers, and many other business professionals. They are carving time out of their schedules because there is a significant need. not because they are home twiddling their thumbs. We have many outstanding employees. However, 2 employees have recently quit, and we've had a couple employees on light duty. The current uncertainty regarding whether they will have a job and benefits will soon, understandably, have others searching for employment elsewhere, particularly since a large number of them have only been employed there a few months. And once again enters the insurance policy. Every program in St. Louis, the APA, the Humane Society, CARE, Stray Rescue, and many more rely heavily on volunteers. Nearly every successful program in the country relies on volunteers, private or public. That is no secret. Thank you.
Louis County Animal Care Control. Dr. Sam Page, I appreciate the challenges that you face in overseeing the county government and everything that entails. I'm coming before you at the County Council today to clarify our message from last week. The problem that we were bringing to you was not about a lack of communication. The Department of Public Health and Spring Schmidt communicate with the staff, and they communicate often. We were informed about the possible partnership with the nonprofit for the operations of the shelter, and we were also informed about all the changes that would be made due to the audit. The problem arises not from lack of communication from the Department of Public Health, but the fact that we are not listened to when we try to communicate back. Today, despite all the changes we have received based on the audit findings, there's little improvement in animal care and staff morale or in the working conditions. We are losing staff again, at least 3 animal caregivers so far, and this is increasing the workload on an already stressed system. The shelter is housing over 360 animals today. To put this in perspective, at the time of the audit, the shelter was housing about 240 animals, a number which the audit thought was already over capacity. Changes based on the audit come to the staff at Animal Care and Control each week with little or no input from the staff and how to effectively implement them into the animal shelter. This leads to greater confusion and chaos in the work environment, not less. The changes are not starting with building a strong foundation. If we start by rebuilding a strong foundation, we can move forward with less stress and chaos to all parties. We can implement positive changes for best practices for our shelter. Once our foundation is strong, we can then move forward by adding new policies and programs to benefit the animals in our care and taxpayers of St. Louis County. The staff continues to try to communicate with the Department of Public Health and now with you and the County Council. We continue to strive to make positive changes in the running of the animal shelter. But when you're dictated to with little or no input from the individuals who are working in the day-to-day operations, there's little hope that the staff can make a difference. The staff at Animal Control are asking for you and County Council to listen to our concerns and give us the opportunity to show you what our shelter staff can do as a team. Give us the opportunity to fix the systems in our shelter with strong policies and procedures. Give us the opportunity to revamp the volunteer and advisory board programs based on audit recommendations so that all of the parties can work together better towards the same positive goals. Give us the opportunity to build a strong foundation to move the shelter forward with best practices to improve patient care. We, the staff at Animal Care and Control, know that we can have a great shelter that everyone can be proud of. Allow us the opportunity to show you that. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you. I've been an employee for St. Louis County for almost 20 years, gratefully, and I'm coming to you to reiterate some of the points that my coworkers spoke about last week and earlier this evening. I feel that there's been a bit of a misunderstanding that they were trying to get across. The point that we were making was not that DPH wasn't communicating to us at Animal Control, but they were not listening to us or allowing us to say anything on how to fix the issues that we have. We are respectfully requesting the County Council and DPH that they will allow us to attempt to undo the damage that the previous management and Steve Stinger had caused. If you were to look back prior to the election of Steve Stinger, you will find a shelter that, although not perfect, was clean, was working more efficiently and effectively, and was on the right track to bring down the euthanasia rates without the shady practices that Dr. Vesco Mock brought to the shelter. By giving us the opportunity to take a step back without the influences from volunteers, advisory board, and the audit recommendations, we could rebuild a steady foundation from which we could implement the audit recommendations successfully. However, at this time, no one is willing to give us the opportunity to do that. In the years since Stinger was elected, we had implemented an advisory board that was allowed to act more like a full board than advisory. This board was made up of people with their own agendas And as someone that took the minutes for the meetings for several years, it has not been a cohesive board, and very little has ever been achieved by having it in place. After that, Dr. Vesco-Mott came on board and devastated the staff members with emotional and verbal abuse daily. She spent the time berating the staff with comments muttered as she walked down the halls. These comments were uncalled for and unnecessary. She chose certain individuals to show as her favorites, and the rest of the staff was determined not to be competent to make a decision. In the matter of 6 months, morale and staff wills were destroyed, and we had 15 employees leave rather than continue to take the bullying. After that, they brought over a staff member from the 9th floor who had no management experience, nor had worked in the animal field to run the place. She had been Vesco-Mott's direct contact for supervision, but did very little supervising. She was a very reactive person, and if a problem was presented, if a problem was presented by the volunteers board or public, she reacted to make the problem disappear before checking to see if it was right or justified. This caused the management staff to look as though we were biased or incompetent to do our jobs. It also resulted in negative press for the shelter and the county. This shelter was not destroyed in a day. It started within 8 days of Stinger taking office and hasn't stopped yet. Spring Schmidt told us that she was on our side and was going to help us fix things. I believed her.
That's 3 minutes, Mr.
Ms. Springwater, I need you to wrap up. If you don't
Okay.
mind.
I'm just asking that you will give us the opportunity to try to fix the problems with the staff that's already there. We have the knowledge and the ability to do so if we're just allowed the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Boyne. I'm currently serving as the Vice President of the St. Louis Animal Rights Team. I'm also a member of St. Louis County SAVE. And the St. Louis Animal Rights Team has been receiving calls about the St. Louis County Animal Shelter literally since the day it opened. Persistent problems of dogs not being walked, ambivalent culture toward volunteers, euthanasia rate too high, just problems with the water system. Just for years, we've been getting calls about these things. And I'm sure that members of this body recognize me and several people who have spoken about it for years and years. For several years, we were constantly being told that we were just wrong, that the situation was being mischaracterized, and that we were essentially dismissed. Finally, we feel like we've been heard. We in April, at the second hearing on St. Louis County Animal Care and Control, we called for an independent audit. We're grateful that that actually happened. And it turns out that that audit verified the things that we have been bringing to the attention of leadership for several years. So I just want to impart that this group of volunteers has been a consistent source of reliable information. And so when we move forward and forge our path forward, these volunteers really deserve a seat at the table that is meaningful and determinative. And I also want to acknowledge the resentment between the staff and the volunteers. I think resentment is inevitable when everybody is being expected to do things that are just unrealistic. Shelters, I know you've heard me say this many times, but shelters don't go no-kill, communities do. And we talked to Director Schmidt about this. We need a public health approach in St. Louis County to really improve the situation at the county animal shelter, and we are here to help. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.